Can you believe that soldiers nowadays are actually required to get a little bit of sleep on 24-hour duty? Can you believe how soft the Army is getting? No, I'm just kidding. That's actually pretty cool. So it was, I guess, last week sometime or a little bit before that, a memo came out from the 18th Airborne, which is out of Fort Liberty, that their commanding general, the person in charge of 18, I forget who it was exactly, but the person in charge of the 18th Airborne out of Fort Liberty has put a memo out that requires individuals on staff duty to get a minimum of 4 consecutive hours before the end of their shift. For those of you that are not familiar with what the hell staff duty is, you're sitting at a desk for 24 hours, manning the phones. You have some other responsibilities to make sure like officer locked, make sure the motor pool is locked, checking on the barracks, all sorts of stuff. And typically it's a 24-hour shift. You're usually there with an NCO and 2 other soldiers or 1 other soldier. It really just depends on the unit as far as how the structure is, but it's typically at a minimum 1 NCO and at least 1 soldier, but some places might have like 1 NCO and 2 soldiers or whatever the case is, but it's 24 hours long. So that's rough, because especially depending on the time of when your duty starts, you might start your duty at 9 o'clock to 9 o'clock the next morning, but you still had to go to PT. So then you're up for more than 24 hours. So it really depends at the unit level as far as what time that duty starts. And you're supposed to stay awake the whole entire time. Now, in my day, did we stay awake the whole entire time? No, not really. Sometimes we would try to do some stuff where maybe we would go catch a 30-minute nap, an hour nap, figure something out. So we would try to take some times to be able to do what we got to do, right? Maybe, because you're allowed to go get like dinner and lunch and all that kind of stuff. So usually we use those times, or other times later in the evening when there's really nobody around to kind of go sneak off or be like, hey man, go take an hour, take a little bit of nap, whatever. I'll just tell people if they're looking for you that, you went to go grab something to eat, whatever the case was. And we work in a little bit of sleep here and there kind of a thing to try to make it not so rough, but typically you weren't actually allowed to do that kind of stuff. Now with this memo over at the 18th Airborne, they're requiring it. So it requires that soldiers must get at least 4 hours consecutively. So you can't split it up and be like, an hour here, an hour there, and then get the 4 hours. No, it's got to be consecutive 4 hours. The memo even actually recommends that it's done during the nighttime, which makes sense because it's probably easier to fall asleep during that time frame. And it's just crazy that it took the Army this long to figure this out. In the memo, they actually state that, an individual that's been awake for that long basically has the same kind of cohesion, or not cohesion, but the same responsiveness as if someone who is, over the limit to drive for drinking, right? They've had too much alcohol, now they're over the limit, and they're not supposed to be driving, but yet we often require those soldiers to drive home after they're done with duty. So you've been up for 24 hours, and now you gotta drive to wherever you live at. Maybe it's the barracks around the corner, or maybe it's, a couple miles down the road to on-post housing, or somewhere's off-post to still drive. And now you're not very alert because you've been awake for over 24 hours. It's crazy though that the Army is just now figuring this out. Well, technically only 1 unit, because so far only this 1 unit has put this out. Hopefully other units follow along. Also in this, it mentions it's for staff duty. Maybe it's on the units, the individual companies to maybe do it for CQ as well. Because you also have something similar called CQ where you're doing it inside the barracks. But nonetheless, they're forcing it on staff duty timeframes. So it's crazy that the Army has just now, or somebody in the Army has just now figured out that, hey, guess what? You've been awake for over 24 hours, you're probably not very alert. Which is also very crazy because you're kind of on guard duty, right? How on earth would you expect someone to be able to do their job very well on guard duty and they have been awake for 24 hours, right? Because that's the point of staff duty partially, is you're there manning the phones, you're 24 hours. Sometimes things that they have to do at staff duty is especially on the weekends, where somebody can call the staff duty number and say, hey, I need a ride. I had a few drinks at the club and I don't want to drive back on post drunk, or I don't want to drive home. They can call the staff duty. Now you're expecting that staff duty driver who's been, maybe at that point, maybe been awake since 2 o'clock in the morning, not too bad, but when it does start getting a little bit later in the day and other things might start to come up, that's when it starts to get a little bit of a struggle. Now you're expecting things to happen at a high response rate, at being very alert at let's say 5 in the morning after you've been almost now awake for almost 24 hours now. So it's great. It's pretty cool that somebody has wised up and finally figured that out, that hey, probably not a good idea to keep people awake for 24 hours and then let them drive home or expect them to function well on a guard duty kind of a thing, kind of what it's like after being up for like 24 hours. We'll see how this kind of works out. We'll see if it kind of trickles over to other units and if the other units kind of pick up on this, or if there's cases of people not enforcing that, because that's gonna be the other thing, is you're gonna have to probably create it in a way that maybe is making sure that leaders are enforcing this, right? And allowing people to be able to get that sleep and get that rest and everything like that. So that way they are getting that minimum of 4 hours of rest before the end of their shift. So we'll have to see how that kind of plays out. But what are your guys' thoughts? You think it's a good idea? I think it's well overdue. I think this should have happened a long time ago, of allowing soldiers to be able to get some sleep, you know, while they're on duty. I have heard of some units that in the past made soldiers like sleep for a couple of hours after they got off duty. Like they had a room in the back that after you got done with staff duty, you had to go sleep in this room for like 2 hours before they would let you drive home, which was crazy. They should have just let you probably get some rest during your shift or something like this guy is doing. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section down below. You think it's a great idea? Bad idea? What are your thoughts? I even seen some people like joking about it, like in the comment section, you know, of the post on Instagram that showed the memo. You know, I was kind of joking about it a little bit at the beginning, saying, oh, this is soft. This is the soft army, because you may remember that, but you know, we all complained about it. You know, we all thought it was so stupid that we had to stay awake for 24 hours and then drive home after being awake for 24 hours. And some of us lived off post for like, you know, 10, 20 minute drive, 30 minute drive off post, or whatever the case was. And now you have to drive. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, hit that thumbs up, share it with somebody that maybe needs to know about this. We need to get the word out. We need to be a standard across the board for all Army individuals, CQ, staff duty, whatever the case is. Let's quit this staying awake 24-hour thing. It's ridiculous. It's dumb. All right. That's all I got to say about that.